Hey guys, it's Jason. Welcome back to my garage and to episode 4 of Building a Budget Beast, the vlog series where I take you through the ins and outs of everything I did to turbocharge my Honda Accord. In this episode, I want to cover everything FMU related, from what exactly an FMU is to how it differs from other fuel management type systems to the advantages and disadvantages of an FMU and why I think it's a good choice for a low boost application, like on my Turbo Accord. Okay, so what exactly is an FMU? An FMU is nothing more than a mechanical metering device. In your fuel system, you have a line coming from your gas tank. It's pumped by the fuel pump up to the injector rails, then back through the return line back into the tank. What an FMU does is it is spliced into the return line. So it simply is a mechanical device that when it senses boost pressure, it clamps down on that line and doesn't allow the fuel to return as quickly as it would, thus putting more pressure back on the fuel rail and backflowing the injectors to give you more fuel. It's actually really a simple design. You can think of this almost the same way as if you grabbed your return line with a pair of pliers and clamped down on it. It's doing the exact same thing. It just uses boost, so you don't have to actually get out there and do that. Okay, so now that we've learned a little bit about the FMU, let's go ahead and start breaking this thing apart. Okay, so now we've got everything broke out here on the bench, and we're just going to go through this individually. So here's the top of the FMU. This is where the nipple is, and it comes down. The vacuum line's attached here, and it's just got a hole in the bottom. It's just nothing more than just to let the boost pressure come through. From there, you have the gasket that we were talking about. Now, the reason for this gasket is it's what kind of uses that boost pressure to apply that pressure to your ratio disc. It happens to be a 12-to-1, which fills out the whole circumference of the body of the FMU. The next piece we have is the actual body. So you can see it's got a hollow hole in it right there. And the recessed part here is where the disc will sit, and it will sit on top of this plunger that runs through. And the plunger can just come straight through, like you see there. Is it pushes on this little aluminum disc, and this little aluminum disc is actually what shuts the fuel flow off from heading back to the tank. And it does that. It sits on this O-ring, and it sits on just like that. And then what it does is you can see that in here there's these little grooves where the fuel comes in and then it'll run right back out. Well, when that disc is being pushed on, it just is like you grabbing a pair of pliers and holding the line. So let's take a look now at this diagram I designed. Here's your typical FMU. As you can see, under normal driving conditions, fuel flows through the FMU without restriction, as if it wasn't even installed on the return fuel line. When the FMU senses positive boost, the internal components all press downward on the lower disc, clamping off the fuel return flow. This builds pressure at the rail and backflows the injectors, giving the car the much needed bump in fuel pressure to deal with the low boost application. Okay, so now let's talk about how the FMU differs from the other systems out there that control things. On the other side of the spectrum, you have full engine management, which is nothing more than a programmable ECU, or electronic control unit. This does the same thing that your normal ECU in your car does now, it's just programmable. So you can put in bigger injectors, and you can change your timing curves and different things that will allow you to run the kind of boost you want. It's certainly the best way to go, and it's the most expensive way to go. The reason I think an FMU is a great choice for a low boost application is because it's the most reasonably priced way to boost the fuel required to run a low boost setup, period. So every system has its advantages and disadvantages. Let's talk a minute about the advantages of an FMU. The biggest advantage is the cost. I bought this thing for about $80 online, and even the big name brand FMUs that cost much more still can be had from people that are selling them slightly used or brand new because they went to engine management for around the same price. So for the cost, you really can't beat them. The second advantage I see is that it allows you to run your car stock the whole time you're not in boost. So basically, the engineers that designed your car, they did a really good job. The cars run great. Hondas are great cars. They run forever. With an FMU, you don't have to mess with any of that stuff. 99% of the time, when you're driving normally or you're not in boost, your car is running exactly the way it should. Because remember, in those normal driving situations, fuel runs in and fuel runs out, just like the diagram I showed you. So 90% of the time, the FMU is not doing anything and the car can run the way it was intended. What does this mean? It means that you're not going to have check engine codes. You're not going to have issues with things that you may have changed. Your fuel mileage is going to be the same. I've proved on this build, I still get well over 30 miles to the gallon, even when I boost. So there is a distinct advantage of being able to run your car just like it was intended most of the time. Another really great advantage of a fuel management unit is it's simple to install. You bolt this thing wherever you want inside your engine compartment. You cut your return line. Fuel in goes there, fuel out goes there, and you hook that to a source of vacuum and you are done. I can install one of these things probably faster than it would take somebody to get their engine management system out of the box. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the disadvantages of an FMU. First of all, you're limited in boost. FMUs are limited to around 7 psi. And the reason they're limited by that is pretty much just because of the high pressure that they build. With a 12-to-1 disc, it's 7 psi. You're putting about 82 psi of extra boost pressure on your whole fuel system. Add that to your base pressure, and now you're up at 122 psi. I was thinking about this the other day, and technically, in theory, these things would work even at much higher boost levels if all the other components could take that kind of pressure. If somebody designed a set of fuel injectors, say, that could backflow and continue to backflow at a steady rate no matter how high the PSI went, and a fuel pump could continue to deliver constant pressure, at huge PSI levels, and the lines could take it without rupturing, then in theory, I guess, you could deliver fuel to any boost level with this. But that's not the way the components are designed. So another disadvantage to using an FMU is they're notoriously unreliable. Because it's all mechanical and the way you saw the exploded diagram view, it just doesn't come on nice and smooth like a computer can tell an injector to back off the flow rate or increase the flow rate. These things in theory are supposed to, when they sense 1 pound of boost it 10, nice and gentle, and then another pound of boost, another 10 psi. I have yet to find one, and that means the expensive name brand units from the big companies that make all the superchargers to the cheap ones, none of them that I've tested when I supercharged Mustangs a long time ago and on this turbo build have come on smooth like that. Generally, what I see with these is they don't raise the fuel pressure at all until you get to a certain amount, and then it all kicks on. So that's why a lot of people think they're junk, and I guess they are. Now, I found a way around that with a mechanical system that controls this, and that will be in another episode. So stay tuned for that if you want to know how I did that. But those are the two big disadvantages. So now that we've disassembled the FMU, it's time to rebuild the unit. When you rebuild an FMU, what you want to do is take a good look at everything, clean it up as you put it back together, and really take a look at the O-ring. Now, what I wanted to show you here was here's the old O-ring, and it's completely flat. And when this O-ring was new, it was a lot, more robust than this. It was plump. This thing is, shriveled. It's kind of dried out. I guess the fuel's dried it out, and it's torn in a couple of different areas. Now, what I believe happened, the reason that my FMU, as I mentioned earlier, started to boost the fuel pressure without being told to by the boost pressure, was because this O-ring failed to a point and got so thin and ratty that the actual plunger just sat on it and was enough to just spike the fuel pressure. So you do want to be aware of that. It's an issue that I wasn't sure of until I got the check engine code. So we've got the new O-ring. We'll go ahead and inspect all the parts on the bench here. We'll take a look at everything. We'll clean everything up, put the new O-ring in, and then let's get back to the car and get it installed. Okay guys, that's it for this episode on FMUs, what they are, and why they're good for a low boost application. I hope you learned a lot and enjoyed the video. For those of you that just maybe stumbled across the video, click the link above and become a subscriber. And to all my subscribers, I want to say thank you again. I really appreciate the dialogue I have with you guys and the comments and the questions and the thumbs up on the video. So until next time, I'll see you right back here inside my garage.